Welcome to Texas Border Watch, your eyes on the front line for all things immigration, policy, and border security. By far, the biggest immigration story this week is that of Ava Moore. She was killed in a jet ski hit and run this week at Grapevine Lake, which is by Fort Worth and Dallas. And we now know the person who hit her with the jet ski and the person who helped in the getaway were here illegally from Venezuela. Here's the latest. Ava was 18 years old. She had just graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy Preparatory School. She was at Lake Grapevine kayaking when she was hit by a jet ski. The driver has been identified as 21-year-old Daikerlyn Alejandra Gonzalez Gonzalez, and there was a passenger who stayed on the scene, a passenger on that jet ski. Gonzalez fled with a man now identified as 21-year-old Maikel Coello Perozo. We're told that they actually hit a few vehicles as they tried to drive away from the lake. Attorney General Ken Paxton announced on Tuesday that the two were in the country illegally. He said in a statement that Gonzalez shouldn't have been here in the first place. In a press conference the next day, Joshua Johnson, who is the acting field director of ICE and emergency removal operations in Dallas, confirmed all this.
Both individuals that were previously mentioned here were Venezuelan nationals in the country illegally. And we've lodged immigration detainers with the facility. Once the state of Texas goes through the process and the criminal charges, we'll take custody of them once the state of Texas is finished with them.
Since then, we've gotten more specifics. Gonzalez entered the United States illegally on September 28, 2023. Perozo entered the country illegally on January 22, 2023. Officials at the press conference say after the criminal justice proceedings against the two have finished in Texas, they will be processed for removal. Those detainers have already been filed in Grapevine. Gonzalez has been charged with felony manslaughter, and Perozo has been charged with hindering apprehension. The first line of defense for keeping drugs or illegal aliens out of the United States are ports of entry. They're all along the border, and when you approach them, you get screened, you have to drive through x-ray machines, but a few miles inward are all of these red dots on our map, which are border checkpoints. You and your vehicle can also get screened there, but they're kind of the second line of defense. Now, we go through the Eagle Pass port of entry a lot when we are traveling back and forth from San Antonio. Usually there is a long line that you have to wait in before you could get to the checkpoint. And just like you see in this picture, Border Patrol will come over to your vehicle. You roll down the windows in the front and in the back of your car. They look around. They might ask to see in your trunk. Sometimes they ask for your ID. Sometimes they don't, but they do typically ask if you're a U.S. citizen. Sometimes the Border Patrol canines are out there as well. Now, lawmakers say that these are really key in border security and interior security as well. But the setup here in Eagle Pass is very different from checkpoints in Laredo, for example, or Falfurrias, which is a really big checkpoint. Congressman Tony Gonzalez calls this specific checkpoint in Eagle Pass outdated, and he actually got to talk to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem in a hearing about wanting more funding to upgrade this checkpoint and others, specifically to help with border security.
One of the things that I would highlight for you, we talked about many things, is infrastructure. In particularly checkpoints. Checkpoints not necessarily along the border, but in our interior, both at the southern and the northern border, I think are very, very important. Please don't lose sight of that. In Eagle Pass in particular, that checkpoint is way outdated for the amount of traffic that's been in there. I flag that for you. Look forward to working together and chatting more on how we build this out.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. With that, Chairman, I yield back.
Now, after that, we learned that funding for border checkpoint upgrades was included in what lawmakers are calling the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. $5 billion for upgrades to Border Patrol facilities and their checkpoints. There's still a ways to go before that funding is fully approved. It's got to go through the Senate. It's got to be signed by the president. But we got to speak with Congressman Gonzalez about why he says it's so important for safety that that money comes through.
If anyone who's been out to Eagle Pass understands that checkpoint that is off the border, we're not even talking about along the border. It is several miles, outside of town on your way to San Antonio and other places. That checkpoint is woefully outdated, and we need to get a modernized checkpoint. If you go to other parts of Texas, Falfurrias and Laredo, they have very organized, technical, or modernized checkpoints. That's what I'm asking for. That's what I asked Secretary Noem to consider is some of the infrastructure as you build it, not only along the border, which is fantastic, but also in the interior. We have to update our checkpoints. The checkpoint in Eagle Pass is very critical to that region.
How busy is that checkpoint compared to some of the others in Texas and in our region?
There is not a month that goes by that I don't get a picture of the line that some resident from Eagle Pass is waiting to get to make their way to San Antonio. And you know what? It's long overdue. It's not fair to them. You know, they're following the rules. They're obeying things. It's not fair for them to have this checkpoint out of a trailer. We need to modernize it. It is long past due. And you know, I've been working very closely with DHS Secretary Noem to make sure that this checkpoint becomes reality.
We also got an inside look at some Border Patrol training happening in the Del Rio sector. We've told you before that Texas National Guardsmen are being trained to make immigration arrests, and Texas Department of Public Safety officers are being trained to help ICE as they go along and they make their arrests. But what we got to sit in on is United States Border Patrol being trained so that they can have arresting authority here in Texas. Aryami Virgen went inside that training and got to hear about what law enforcement says the benefits of this will be. Here she is with that.
Walking through the brush, extreme heat and humidity, to see how easy it is to be lost.
In the Texas brush and across the remote areas of the U.S.-Mexico border, it's been all hands on deck for years. Border Patrol and Customs has relied on state and local officers for help handling the flow of migrants and smugglers trying to get their illegal goods into the United States.
It's our goal to arrest people.
But now Border Patrol agents are the ones being trained to have Texas state arrest powers.
Del Rio sector is the first sector to receive the training under State Bill 602. Allows the agents to arrest, conduct searches and seizures for any felonies that are under the state of Texas, provided that they occur at our ports of entry or at checkpoints.
At checkpoints like this one in Uvalde, everyone has to stop and answer basic questions while agents and canines check the vehicles. This is where Border Patrol agents will see the biggest change after their training. Up until now, if someone was suspected of committing a state felony, Border Patrol agents could only detain them until a deputy or a state trooper arrived, a process that could take hours or sometimes never happen.
There may be times that they do not have officers available to respond, so then we would have to release them. It leads to a safer border or a safer environment because you're not releasing that subject that essentially is a dangerous subject.
Bill 602 was passed in 2023, and this is only the second class being trained as outlined by the law. The training is required for agents to be able to arrest suspects for state felonies at ports of entry and checkpoints. The Border Prosecution Unit was also in Del Rio to train about 150 patrol and customs agents. The agents' most common encounters? Felons in possession of firearms.
It's very common.
Something federal agents could not act on before without local help.
That is like the felony that, or the state felony that we probably run into the most, aside from the DUIs as well.
One of the things that we do is we come out here and we try to provide some trainings, all kinds of training, whether it's physical, ACT, or...
The course, which Fox SA was exclusively invited to, lasts 6 hours. It covers arrests, seizures, and felony offenses, things these federal agents already handle under federal law. The learning curve isn't too steep since the focus now is on how these cases are handled under Texas state law. Federal sources tell us the implementation of the training was slowed down by internal questions from DHS and CBP legal teams. But now the training is underway, giving agents a tool both the state and federal government believe will help close dangerous gaps in law enforcement along rural border areas.
It enhances security and safety for the people of the United States in that you're able to get dangerous criminals off that may not have been arrested as a result of the passage of SB 602.
Now, that training was in Del Rio, but there was another one in El Paso recently, too. That's all for this week's Texas Border Watch. As always, you can read more in depth on any of these stories on our websites, news4sanantonio.com and foxsanantonio.com. Thank you for watching.